What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. So we are finally getting into it. We are getting into the Inverse Academy episodes for set 7. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Abysscraft. If you already can't tell by the leader we're representing here, what version of Abysscraft. And that deck is Machina, Abyss, Mono Abyss, however you want to pronounce this deck name and whatnot. This is a deck that's definitely going to be popping up set 7, and you're going to see a lot. But before we get into it, let's talk about the pros and cons when playing this deck. Alright, so for the pros, we have storm damage, a huge board, and free plays, while along with the cons, we have archetype heavy play points and then the alpha drive setup. Alright, and first starting off with storm damage, so we are going to be playing our main follower for the deck, and then our evolve for our main follower has storm, so we're going to be swinging in for a lot of damage when we do evolve. Alright, and we do have huge boards, so able to use our big storm damage follower, we're going to need our board full with Machina cards, which will be one of the points we will be making in cons. And then we have the free plays, so there are going to be certain free plays. I wouldn't necessarily call them free plays, but you play one card and then you're able to play another. Alright, and then getting into the cons, so starting with archetype heavy, so when we were talking about the huge board thing, we are going to need all Machina cards, our archetype, just to make sure we are able to evolve one of our followers, and if we don't have a single one up there, then we're not able to do it. Alright, and then we have the play points, so of course it's going to be nice to do some very aggressive plays and whatnot, but if we want to do the full play line of what we want to do for our deck, we're going to need at least, 4+ play points for one play. Alright, and lastly, we have Alpha Drive setup. So one of the things that we are going to be using for our big boss monster legendary card is that we need a certain card in our cemetery to be able to get rid of so we can do the rest of its effects. Alright, and we have our legendary cards. So we have Mono, so she's a 2-cost 3/2. You can evolve from one, but you can only evolve her if you have 5 Machina cards on your field, but you can also use her ability to activate by banishing 2 Machina cards from your cemetery, and you can get an assembly droid onto the field. While her evolve side, she has Storm and she's a 5/4. You can use 2 play points in her activate ability by banishing the Alpha Drive from your cemetery, and you can give each Machina follower in your field +2/+2 and Rush. So I know it looks a little scary seeing the evolve side and saying, hey, I need at least a full board of Machinas to be able to evolve this card. Well, one, this evolve has Storm, so it makes it a little fair that it's a 2-cost follower. But you also get another follower out of it by using the activate ability on the unevolved side to go ahead and fill up 2 spots with Machinas, and then if your Machinas maybe survived in the earlier turns, you can definitely use those too. But we're going to be using other effects from other cards to be putting cards like Assembly Droid into our EX area that cost only 1, so we can really commit a whole bunch of Assembly Droids onto the field. And then with our Assembly Droids being so cheap, and then when they come out onto the field with our Mono's ability, as long as we get rid of the Alpha Drive in our cemetery, we will be able to spend those 2 play points and make these Assembly Droids 3/3s with Rush. Alright, so let's talk Machina. So we have Sanguine Core, Bone Drone, Alpha Drive, and Anea MFS Rebel. Alright, so looking at Sanguine Core, so 1-cost Amulet, that's pretty nice. So when you play, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, you may reveal a Machina card from among them and add it to your hand, and then put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order, and then you can also engage it by burying this card and putting an Assembly Droid into your EX area. Alright, so it's very good that there's also the stipulation that doesn't let you do this as early as turn 1, because you need at least 5 Machina cards in your cemetery, which won't be too hard with the cards that we'll see in the future. Alright, and next up we have Bone Drone, so it's a 2-cost 2/2, but when it dies you summon an Assembly Drone token. Alright, so pairing this card up with our Mono ability is going to be very amazing, because this card then becomes a 4/4, it swings into a follower that potentially has 4 defense, or you're setting up for some sort of kill, or if you want to use any of your Assembly Droids abilities and use it with this, you'll always be replacing a card and getting a card back on the field. And then next up we have the Alpha Drive, so this is the card that's going to be in the core of the build. So we have a multi-choice ability in using this spell. We can either 1, select a Machina follower in our cemetery and add it to our hand, or 2, select a Mono Garnet Rebel in your cemetery and summon it. So the one thing that is going to be very consistent, or that's going to be happening a lot in this deck, is the recursion from your cemetery. So you play cards from your cemetery, or you're going to be putting cards into your cemetery from other effects, and cards like Alpha Drive are going to get your Mono back if you potentially maybe milled it or something, or opponent sniped it out of your hand. Well, there's another way. You have 6 ways to play Mono this way. Alrighty, and then next up we have Anea MFS Rebel, so she's a 4-cost 2/2, so when she comes in a Blaze Searcher deck for a Machina follower that costs 3 or less and summon it, then shuffle your deck, and then when she dies you give her leader +2 defense. So as you can see, she is a Machina card, so she is going to be getting the buff off of Mono, but not only that, if you trade into another follower you get some health and repair to it, but not only that, when she's played she can get any Machina follower that's 3 or less and then puts it into play. Alright, so Anea is going to be bringing the whole game plan together. So we play Anea, we go get our mono. We're able to use the mono ability to go ahead and banish 2 Machina cards from our cemetery to go ahead and get an assembly droid. That's already 3 cards already when we just only use 4 play points. So if we have the other assembly droids in the EX area, we can go ahead and play them, and then we can do our mono things. But before we break off into the next section, I want to give a honorable mention to Robo Zombie. If you're having any Assail Bane removal needs, Robo Zombie will be there for you, but unfortunately he did not make the cut for as many of the other Machina cards that are on the board here. I think he is still pretty decent for being a bronze card, but we wish you well, Robo Zombie. Alright, and let's talk about Nicola and the Demon. So, you have Nicola, he's a 3-cost Machina card, which you can get off of Anea or any of the other abilities that let you look through your deck and then play a Machina card. So, he's played and you bury the top 2 cards of your deck, which ability does really help if you need at least 5 Machina cards in your cemetery to do certain effects. And then looking at his evolve, so you select the Machina card that's 2 or less in your cemetery and put it into your EX area, and it costs 2 less to play. Now remember this ability on the evolve side because it will come back up when we talk about our removal cards. But do remember that it says any Machina card, not a Machina follower, so you can put any of the Machina cards that are 2 or less and put it into EX area, and then it can be played for free. Alright, and then let's talk about Hellblaze Demon. So she's a 2-cost 2/3, not that bad in terms of stats, but when she's played, you discard a card and you put the top card of your deck into your EX area, and if it's a follower, it gets +1/+1. So one thing I will always say, there are certain cards in certain matchups or certain scenarios where you're like, this is a dead card in my hand, I don't need this right now, and with the amount of recursion that's in this deck, that's okay to be discarding cards like that. So using the Hellblaze ability, just pitching a card, whatever card you don't really need in the moment, and then looking at the top card of your deck, putting it into your EX area. If it's a follower, it gets a buff, and hopefully in an optimal scenario, you can mill mono off the top of your deck. And alright, let's talk about removal. So looking at our first card, we have Forbidden Art, so it's a 2-cost spell, so you select the enemy from the field and deal a 4 damage, and if there's a Nicola Forbidden Strength on your field, you deal 6 instead. Alright, so this is going to be the go-to card that you're going to be wanting to use when using the Nicola Evolve effect when choosing a 2-cost card. Now, if your opponent doesn't have any cards on board, which sometimes that does happen, you can get anything. So it doesn't have to be a spell card, it can be any Machina 2-cost card. But using this card, well, as long as that evolve target's on the field, you're going to be doing a lot more damage than usual. Alright, and next up we have Dublame, Duke, and Dame. So this is a card that's going to be helping in that early aggression. So if your opponent's going to be playing cards very early and you need to trade into potential units, I think this is the card you're really going to be looking forward to. Alright, and next up we have our legendary neutral Machina card, and that is Technolord. So he's a 6-cost 6/6. When he comes into play, you banish 3 Machina cards from your cemetery and you choose up to 2 of the following. You can either 1, select the enemy follower on the field and destroy it, 2, select the enemy Amulet on the field and destroy it, 3, deal 3 damage to each enemy leader, or 4, search your deck for a Machina card not named Technolord, reveal it, and add it to your hand. Alright, so this is going to be one of the cards that you're going to be getting back with Alpha Drive. You just got to make sure when you do the fanfare effect by banishing 3 Machina cards, don't get rid of your Alpha Drive. Just make sure you get rid of anything that's not like 2 or less, or maybe things that are 3 or more, just for cards that you can't get off of Nicola in the Evolve. So you really want to pay attention to stuff like that. Alright, so let's talk about our neutral helpers. So these are all the neutral helpers that are going to be helping us in the deck. So how it was divided in this set, we have our Machina neutral helpers, and then we have our Natura neutral helpers. So we're going to be looking at the Machina cards here. And starting off with Mecha Gun Wielder, so she's a 1-cost 1/2. When she's played, you put an assembly droid or repair mode token into your EX area, and then when she dies, you discard a Machina card and then you draw a card. So if you don't have the Sanguine Cord, this is a very good card to play on turn 1 as well, just to go ahead and start putting those assembly droids into your EX area. And then next up we have Robo Goblin, so he's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve him for 1, but you put a repair mode token into your EX area when he dies. Alright, so looking at the Robo Goblin evolve, so when he is evolved, you do summon a assembly droid token onto the field, and then when he still dies, you put a repair mode token into your EX area. Very good in tempo plays, especially since with the assembly droid we can go ahead and engage himself and then get rid of 3 Machina cards, which the 2 other cards that we just looked at can be used and have last words in the bearing, and dealing 5 damage is something I think it's a pretty good pair up. And then lastly, we have Mecha Wing Angel. So she's a ward, but when she is played, you put an assembly droid or repair mode into your EX area. But you can also engage her and select enemy following the field and deal the 4 damage, and you can activate it only if you have 5 Machina cards in your cemetery. But looking at every single one of these neutrals, all of these neutrals helped in a way for your game plan by putting either an assembly droid or repair mode or anything into your EX area that you can put out into play. And for those of you who don't know, repair mode is just a 1-cost quick spell that you're able to just heal 1. It is not a permanent like an assembly droid. Alright, so let's talk late game options. So when everything is said and done, we're all monoed out, there are no more Machinas, we need a secondary game plan that is really going to help us. And when in doubt, Gensetsu out. So I think Gensetsu is probably the best way to go for late game options, just because she summons all those one-tailed foxes, they have ward, rush, and then they get that extra bonus damage as long as she's on the field. And with her evolve just being a big 1/9, and for every fox that's removed she gets a buff too, I think that's a very good thing to look at. But secondarily, if you want to look at other options, I think Cerberus is a good option too, just because she's very good using the Mimi and Coco tokens. If you want to swing for extra damage, we have that Coco. And if you want to get rid of one follower that's really pesky and then, you know, don't have spell cards or anything, getting a Mimi out is nice too. And then if you have the Necro Charge, getting both. And then with the Evolve, getting the extra Coco and stuff in your EX area to buff up maybe your mono is a very good play. Alright, so let's talk about the tech cards. Alright, so I want to start off by saying not every single card in here is tech, Whispers of a Dream, but outside of that, I think these are the certain cards you want to help out with like other engines in your archetype, or maybe, you know, certain playstyles that you might struggle against, like maybe aggro, or maybe a super heal build. I think these are the cards you really need to look at. So starting off with Soul Conversion, I think this paired up with Mecha Gun Wielder is going to be very good, just because you can go ahead and get the Soul Conversion out, draw 2 cards, discard a Machina card, draw another card, because deck thinning is deck winning. Alright, and next up we have Bellringer Angel. So I will preach up and down that Bellringer Angel is just a good card to just counteract aggro. If you have your 1 Evo, you know, you got rid of that 1 aggro piece that stopped from attacking. There are some decks that run 1-cost 1/1s that will be attacking on turn 1, or, you know, the very next turn, and putting Bellringer Angel in engaged position to stop that from happening, stopping the damage, is very good. Alright, so this next one might be a little bit of a hot take. I know, just, you know, butcher me in the comments if you think it's a bad idea. But I think Azazel is very good to look at, especially if there are decks that are just very good and get into a very grindy matchup. You know, just putting them at 10 health, and then, you know, the following turn they might be scrambling to get their health back, or, you know, they can't get back at all. And they take care of your Azazel, leaves your board open, you can go ahead and start swinging with your Machina things. Alright, so this last card I wouldn't really consider it to be tech, since this is a card that Abyss is just running now. You can go ahead and get rid of a 3 or less follower and then bury the top card. Just good removal all around, but, you know, everybody's not the same. And alrighty soldiers, we have made it to the grade of the deck. So before we get into a grade of the deck, we always look at a sample deck list of either my concurrent brewing or something that I made. But I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know that I went ahead and just stole something off of the JP deck list, so we're going to be looking at that. Alright, so here is the sample deck list we have here. I'm not going to go over every single card since we just looked at everything. But of course, in my build, I'm just going to go with Gensetsu Endgame with, of course, the Technolord and the Whispers of Dream. But also added in Razor Claw, just because we can have an extra 3 damage by doing 2 damage to ourselves. There might not be situations where we can finish our opponent off with, you know, the maximum amount of damage we can do with mono, but Razor Claw definitely helps. Alright, so update, I know I did say that I stole that deck list, but most of the core was just Machina Abyss stuff, and then we threw in the extra Razor Claw and then, you know, Whispers of Dream, but those are things that we already need in the deck. But outside of that, getting to the grade of the deck, so the deck is very strong. It's able to recurse a lot of stuff out of your cemetery. You can go ahead and get things out of your deck like you're playing the cool, like, Idolmaster deck, which is pretty good. So I think this deck is a pretty solid A if I were to give it up, if for anything. I think this deck is very strong. It has a lot of recursion, has big storm damage. You're doing 10 plus damage on a turn if you're able to have a stale follower, and then pair it up with mono and they get a +2/+2 buff and they're swinging in with mono too. That's a lot of damage coming to face. Well, alright soldiers, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you watching the Inverse Academy breakdown. I know it's been a while since we did our last one. Idolmasters kind of felt a little lackluster. It was a little boring. starting, I understand, but we're getting back onto the main sets with set 7. I'm very excited that Verdant Steel is here. I might put out a poll to figure out which Shadowverse Academy episode we want to do next, that either being Swordcraft, Forcecraft, or maybe Rune. I will get to the Dragon one, but obviously I'll get to that one last since, you know, Dragon is my natural enemy as a Rune player. I'm going to be doing that one last. But alrighty, soldiers, that is it. Thank you for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. Make sure you're safe whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah. TRINN just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do, just to get you away. What I got to do, what I got to do, just to get you away. You pull me too close, now we hesitate. Every single move you make, it makes me feel